The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour. Today on the AgriLife Extension Hour, we will be featuring family health and wellness with host Amy Ressler.
And hello, this is Amy Ressler here on the Extension Hour. So happy to be back again. I always enjoy bringing guests with me, and today I have a very special guest. They're all very special, but you're extra special, Lora. This is Lora Jorgensen.
Hi.
Hey. So Lora is, she used to work with me at the Extension office in a special program that we have called Better Living for Texans, and she was awesome, and I was so sad to lose her, but she had a better job. She had more important things she needed to do. So, but she often comes back and volunteers with us, so we love having you. So Lora, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your education and experience, and kind of what brought you to educating people.
Okay. Thanks for having me too, Amy. I really appreciate it. My education started in Wisconsin, where I'm from. I have 2 degrees. Initially, I got a degree in medical microbiology and medical technology, and I did that for a while, working in hospitals and clinic labs. And then I took a slightly different turn and went the way of nutrition, and I went back to school and got a graduate certificate in public health nutrition. And since then, I've focused on teaching children, adults, young kids, high school kids, any age groups really, on healthier eating and cooking skills.
Yeah. And I Googled just a little bit when you talk about your degrees, because when I saw your resume, I was like so incredibly impressed. I was like, wow, look at that. So anyway, your degrees sound like really very technical and advanced, but you were so good at really just relating to people. And I think I'm glad you got into teaching and educating, because I think that you do a really good job with that.
Thank you. So
we did a lot of programs together, a lot of classes, and then classes individually as well on nutrition. It's one of the big things that we work on in Extension. And so usually we talk about My Plate. It's the basics of a healthy diet. Half your plate needs to be fruits and vegetables, a quarter of your plate to be grains, and we want your grains, like half of them, to be whole grains, and then to use lean sources of protein for your other 1/4 of your plate, include dairy, which is great for the general population, right?
Yes.
So it's really important that we, keep in mind that usually when we're giving classes, we're pretty general, but occasionally questions will come up about specific food situations, and one that comes up pretty often is about gluten, celiac disease, gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, and that's one of the places that you're always really helpful, because you want to tell them a little bit about your personal experience with that.
Sure. I grew up eating gluten all my whole life. For those that don't know, gluten is a protein that is found in wheat and also in rye and barley. And it's very common in our diets. If you eat bread or pasta or cereals, a lot of those products are made out of wheat, and there's gluten in them. So, of course, that's a large part of a lot of our diets. And my experience was that a few years back, I developed a really severe illness very quickly, just overnight. And I went through about 6 months of medical testing, and the doctors had no idea what was wrong with me. And I was tested for everything under the sun. And it wasn't until the doctors said to me to try dietary elimination, try to eliminate one food group at a time to try to figure out if it was a food group that was causing this. That's when we started seeing some results. And when I eliminated the gluten was when I started getting better. And it did take a while, but eventually, after being gluten-free for several months, I was fully back to good health. So that is how I found out I have a gluten sensitivity or an intolerance. Now, I was not diagnosed with celiac disease. Celiac disease is a very real disease. Approximately 1 in 133 people in the United States are diagnosed with celiac disease. Those are people that cannot tolerate one bit of gluten in their diets whatsoever. They simply react to it very, very strongly, and
right, and it's a chronic disorder, so it means that is a lifelong disease.
Yes.
And the symptoms with that actually vary from person to person. It affects the digestive system and actually other parts of the body. But, to know if you have the disease, you need to consult a physician, and that's what you were doing. But they didn't find specifically celiac disease for you, right?
Right. They did test for it. I was negative. So I am somewhat intolerant to gluten or sensitive to it. However, I don't have celiac disease.
Okay. So, but there are people who do have food allergies and food intolerances and food sensitivities. So I think it's just important to say the experience that you have is very real, and we're going to talk more about your particular experiences. So if someone is thinking that, maybe I have a problem with gluten, then there are steps that they can take to find that out. And often celiac disease is actually found with very young people, children, right? Usually it's not with adults, correct?
It can be both, but yeah, it's becoming more and more common to be tested for it if someone has symptoms. The symptoms are just real kind of general IBS type symptoms, cramping, pain, bowel problems, and those are very nonspecific general symptoms, and I think it's becoming more common to be tested if you are having those symptoms.
Sure. So the celiac disease in particular is just like the villi and the intestines are actually damaged. So that's why it's a disease. Now, if it's an allergy occurs when a food's eaten and the body defense system mistakes the food, and usually it's a protein food, but mistakes that protein for something harmful. So it develops antibodies and it fights against it. So it's an allergy like other types of allergies we have. And then food intolerance is when the digestive system responds rather than the actual immune system responding. So that's when food just kind of irritates the digestive system, so the person can't properly digest the food.
Exactly.
So someone's thinking that they have problems with it. You went through, got the testing. They told you, oh, sorry, you don't have. Sorry, we don't know what your problem is.
That's exactly what they said.
But your experience, so you found that when you didn't eat it, you were better.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are finding is that generally there definitely is some sort of intolerance that's quite common in the population, that we just find that when we don't eat gluten, we feel better, and it's, again, just there's research being done on it to find out exactly what the cause is, what particular part of the protein or the wheat causes this, but the research is still being done on it, so there's not a lot of answers yet.
Yeah, but it is good to know that they are looking into it, because there are people that are having some very real symptoms and some pretty uncomfortable difficulties with it. So with gluten, I remember one time you were talking about, or one time when you got sick at work or not at work, but you weren't able to come in one day because you had been at a Mexican food restaurant the day before. So you're very good about figuring out, kind of deciding what kind of foods have gluten in them, what the ones that you can eat safely. So corn chips usually are fine. One of your favorites, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then so you're at a Mexican food restaurant. You ask if there's flour in their corn chips. They say no, but then you ordered a specialty side dish or something, and it came with some corn tortillas. But
yes, but I found out later, after I'd eaten them, that those particular corn chips were made with a blend of wheat and corn, and which I'm finding out is quite common in restaurants or in the tortillas you might buy. Is you have to be careful because you can't just assume they're corn. Corn, of course, has no gluten in it, and the wheat would be the problem. So when they're blending corn and wheat together, that's the problem. And I found out too late that that's what had been done. So, so you just have to be really careful.
Yeah,
ask a lot of questions.
Definitely. So I want to talk a little bit about the strategies that you do use. Reading labels.
Yes,
really
label
important.
reading is huge. I don't buy a product without reading the label fully. And a lot of products are very helpful and they have allergens bolded or underlined. However, they don't always do that. So unless it pops right out at you, where it's got those main allergens, wheat being one of the ones that should be bolded. If it doesn't pop right out at you, read the whole label and see if there's anything in there that says wheat or wheat gluten, or even things like rye flour that would have gluten in it. Also, gram flour, which is a wheat product. Sometimes they'll just list it as gram flour. So just get to know what things have gluten in it and be looking for those.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit more. We're going to talk more about some of the other things to look for, because you just mentioned a couple. It can get really confusing, right? So we need to take a break. But I want to remind everyone you're listening to the Extension Hour right here on Lone Star Internet Radio, and I'm Amy Ressler.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
Hi, this is BJ Orner from Montgomery County Performing Arts Society. I'm here to remind you to get your tickets now for all the upcoming events that McPass has to offer. All shows will be held at the beautiful Crichton Theater in downtown Conroe. Call 936-441-7469 for your tickets today, or go to our website, www.mcpass.org, for more information. Hope to see you at the show.
At Jazzy Junk, volunteers reclaim, restore, and recycle. Jazzy Junk is a non-profit resale storefront where you will discover wonderful, unique finds at very affordable prices on furniture, antiques, books, art, home decor, and more. When you shop Jazzy Junk, you support New Danville, a community for adults with developmental disabilities. We receive new donations daily, so plan a visit to Jazzy Junk today to find that perfect item or gift. Our motto is here today, gone today. So remember to hurry in and shop often for the best selection. Jazzy Junk is located in the outlets at Conroe on League Line Road and I-45 North. Call 936-441-4500 or visit our website, jazzyjunk.org. That's JUNQUE for more information and store hours.
Doing business since 1985, Assistance League of Montgomery County is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization where all proceeds stay in Montgomery County. We are proud to sponsor 10 philanthropic programs that enhance the lives of those in our community. Visit our thrift shop at 126 North San Jacinto Street in downtown Conroe or call us at 936-760-1151. Don't forget to like us on Facebook.
And we're back with the Extension Hour every Friday here on Lone Star Internet Radio. And I'm Amy Ressler, County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences. This is the Family Health and Wellness Hour. And one of the things that a lot of families experience is some food allergies. And so we're talking today specifically about gluten as far as being a food allergy, food sensitivity, and in some cases, a disease. So I've got Lora Jorgensen with me today. And Lora is actually a person who experiences gluten sensitivity and has made lots of adjustments in her life to to adapt to that. So we want to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies that you use. So let's say a person decides for whatever reason that they want to go gluten-free. They need to see if it's a problem, or maybe they've had problems in the past. What are the strategies that they need to employ to make that happen?
Well, for starters, you have to pick a time frame to try to be gluten-free, and generally it's 2 weeks to 30 days is what people will try. And the goal is to completely eliminate gluten from your diet for that time period and basically just see how you feel. And if you're having some symptoms, you want to see if those symptoms go away. And then at the end of the time period, if you add the gluten back into your diet and the symptoms come back, then you kind of get an idea that you are having some reaction to it.
Okay, and I got to say that would be like really hard. I mean, to actually, because gluten is in so many things.
It is.
So to go completely gluten-free for that amount of time can be very challenging.
It can be very challenging. A lot of the foods that we eat on a very regular basis have gluten in them. Like I said before, our breads, our pastas, a lot of cereals, a lot of baked goods. I mean, we're looking at, on a daily basis, we probably eat gluten 2, 3, 4 times a day in most cases.
And so some things are really obvious. Flour.
Yes, right.
Flour's going to have it.
Flour's made out of wheat, and it's anything made with flour is going to have it.
And then sometimes the flour shows up, excuse me, in some really interesting or different places you might not expect. So sometimes it's used as a thickening agent in something. And so it might be on there. So one of the ways to figure that out is to do some pretty intense label reading, right?
Yes, for sure. You have to read labels really on everything. Even if something, if you don't kind of have the idea that it might have flour in it, there's a lot of tricky places it can hide. One of the examples would be canned soup. It's really difficult to buy canned soup that doesn't have gluten in it. So one sure way to find out if something is gluten-free is if it has a nice big label on the front that says certified gluten-free. There's a lot of companies now that will certify products as gluten-free, and you can trust that. However,
just want to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Something that's really kind of funny about that is often there are, so it's kind of become a trend now, right?
Yes.
Gluten-free, everyone, maybe I need to not eat gluten. And so there's like all kinds of, you might see a gluten-free label on rice, or on a bottle of water, or juice, or whatever. So, gluten-free. And so it's kind of a marketing trick. And they manufacturers do that with lots of different kinds of things. And I think, too, about like the fat-free and the sugar-free trend, that often they'll even do that, something that's fat-free. But if it's naturally fat-free, it's just more of a marketing ploy. They're trying to sell things, and not necessarily looking out for your health.
Yes.
And I know for some people, too, they'll see that gluten-free and they hear about people and gluten and they think, maybe I shouldn't. But unless you have discovered that you really do have a sensitivity or celiac disease, then, the average person does not need to avoid gluten.
Right. If you don't react to it, there's no reason to avoid it. It's not like gluten-free products are healthier for you. There's a lot of gluten-free junk food out there, so you really have to be careful. No, it's just that if you are reacting to it, you want to avoid it. If you're not reacting to it, it's perfectly fine to have in your diet. Whole grain wheat is a nutrient. It has protein, and a lot of people find that it's an important ingredient in their diet.
Definitely. So gluten-free and the labeling, and if you're not allergic to it, there's no need to cut it out of your diet specifically. Another thing that I want to point out that happens is, sometimes people will go gluten-free and they end up gaining a lot of weight. They're thinking that they're being healthy, and maybe they don't even have a problem with gluten, but they are eating all these gluten-free products. So I'm eating gluten-free cookies. I don't understand why I'm gaining weight or whatever. What happens is they put other stuff in it, and sometimes there's other things that have more calories. So you still have to be really careful about, even though you're being gluten-free, there's still calories to look at. Calories and fat and all those things that cause us to gain weight.
Yes, right. If you read the ingredients on gluten-free products such as cookies or crackers or pizza crust, you're still going to find that they're very high in carbohydrates. They usually replace the wheat with other flours such as rice flour or just other grains that don't have gluten. And then there's other ingredients that are added to kind of mimic the properties that gluten naturally gives to the product. Like gluten is a kind of an elastic feeling kind of a protein, and that's what gives our bread a nice stretchy texture and makes it so wonderful. And you can achieve that somewhat with gluten-free products, but they really have to be they have to blend things together, and they have to add thickeners or gums to it to give it that same texture, to mimic what gluten does.
Yeah. So. And it's also not something that's going to happen just immediately. That you start eating gluten-free. You decide I'm going to have a gluten-free life, and all of a sudden, everything's fine. You just keep rocking along. It does take a lot of adjustment. So you've learned to cook differently. And I know that you love to cook.
Yes.
It's one of your favorite things. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Meal planning for your family. You've got three teenage kids and busy household.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the things that you do eat on a regular basis.
Okay. I base my meals around the meat and the vegetables, and I try to make the grains, obviously they're always gluten-free, but I try to make that kind of a smaller part of the meal. I try to follow my plate. Grains are supposed to be a quarter of your plate, and you're supposed to eat half of your plate, fruits and vegetables. So I do try to follow that as much as I can. I'll make rice or potatoes as a side dish, and I generally kind of stick with that. I use a lot of vegetable substitutions where you would normally use, say, pasta. Like, for example, one of my favorite things to do is instead of spaghetti, I have this really cool thing that makes zucchini noodles. And so I'll make zucchini noodles and use that, with our pasta sauces or whatever sauce you want. It makes a great substitute. And, you gotta, it encourages your family to eat more vegetables, for one thing.
Which is always a good thing.
Yes.
Always.
And you do have to remember to keep trying new things, especially with kids. It can take many tries, up to 10 to 12 times for someone trying a new thing.
Which is a lot.
To like
That's
it.
10 to 12 times is really a lot. Yeah.
So, keep offering the vegetables to your family, and hopefully eventually they will, be accepting of them. But I'm lucky that my family really likes vegetables, and we eat a lot of them. So I do a lot of substitutions like that.
Okay. All right. So we kind of touched on label reading, but I want to get back to that just a little bit more. Tell me what are the scariest words in a label for you?
Well, usually that first one that says, 100% wheat flour or something like that. That's a big one.
Run.
Right. But like I said before, they're not always real obvious. A lot of the labels will bold that or underline it, but not always. So you have to read through. Some of the other things you have to look for are things like modified food starch. That can be made out of wheat or it can be made out of corn. If they don't specify, that's one to be wary of. You may want to choose not to buy the product, or you may want to call the manufacturer and ask what is their food starch made out of. Thickeners, sometimes it'll just say binder or thickener. That's another unspecified one that you want to be careful of. One thing that I find is really kind of tricky is even when you think you're buying a product that should be naturally gluten-free, say meat. Meat in its own state is naturally gluten-free.
Right.
A lot of times there is a seasoning put on, let's say, chicken breasts, or, you'll buy a pre-seasoned package of meat. You have to be careful because a lot of times they use wheat flour in those seasonings. And generally they will list the ingredients on the package, so be sure to read through that list of ingredients and make sure that there's no wheat flour in the seasoning.
Yeah, because that's like one of the most unsuspecting things. And eating at restaurants is another thing you have to ask. I mean, you might assume, I can get the beef fajitas because it's beef.
Right,
but that fajita seasoning.
The seasonings, yes. And I have found restaurants to be very, very helpful. They will almost always have if not a gluten-free menu for you to use, they're very knowledgeable and will tell you what's in the sauces and the seasonings, or even sometimes they will bring the cook or the chef out to talk to you, and he will tell you what is in that. So I've just found restaurants to be a really good experience lately, and they're really getting real good about marking items on the menus as gluten-free.
Good. So tell us a little bit more about, if we're talking about fillers in foods, but sometimes even in like vitamins or capsules or medications, sometimes there's wheat products.
There sure can be, yes.
Yeah.
You have to read labels again, and even in your multivitamin, there might be wheat flour used as some sort of a filler, thickener. You just have to read labels on everything that goes into you.
Yes, and then like anything, it's difficult at first.
Yes.
But the more practice, the easier you get, and then you just kind of learn some things to stay away from.
Yeah, absolutely. And you tend to buy more things that don't require labels at all, like fresh produce. And
which is, again, always a good thing.
Right.
Okay, we're going to run, and we're going to take another break. This is Amy Ressler, and you were listening to the Extension Hour.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Howdy, folks. Cable Smith, host of the Lone Star Outdoors Show, inviting you to join me Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 on Lone Star Internet Radio for Texas' premier hunting, fishing, and outdoor talk show. So pour yourself another cup of coffee and pull up that stool a little closer to the old campfire, because if you can catch it or kill it in Texas, we're going to talk about it. That's right. Bucks and ducks, gobblers, monster bass, redfish, trout, and a whole lot more. Plus, you never know what outdoor celebrity is going to drop by, from Phil the Duck Commander Robertson to fishing legend Bill Dance or everybody's favorite uncle Ted Nugent. Heck, we might even mix in an interview and hear some brand spanking new Texas music from one of your favorite Texas musicians like Robert Earl Keen, Brandon Ryder, or the honky-tonk kid himself, Aaron Watson. Loved or hated but never ignored, it's the Lone Star Outdoors Show with me, Cable Smith, Saturday mornings from 7 to 8 right here on Lone Star Internet Radio on irlonestar.com.
Hi, this is Erica Tullis, Executive Director of the Breast Cancer Charities of America. The Breast Cancer Charities of America is a national nonprofit organization with our headquarters in The Woodlands, Texas. We focus on non-invasive breast cancer research and helping the true patient that is going through breast cancer. Through our Help Now Fund, we help women pay the rent and utilities while going through their breast cancer treatment. It's unlike any other program that truly is out there. We are here to help the woman. Our phone number is 936-231-8460. For more information or to get involved or to even make a donation, please visit our website, www.igopink.org.
You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio here on irlonestar.com with the Extension Hour. Right now, it's the bottom of the hour. We're going to give you your traffic and weather report. Some light rain has been reported around the Montgomery County area and will continue all the way through the weekend. We're expecting a flash flood watch tonight leading into the Saturday morning. Right now, it's around 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity is around 87%. The high today is going to be 78 with a low around 70. And like I said, expect some heavy rain all the way through the weekend for your Halloween special night, I guess. So I'm sorry about that, folks. Traffic-wise in the Montgomery County area, people are heading home, that's for sure, because I'm seeing some heavy traffic heading northbound on I-45 coming from Houston. But if right when you hit the Arty Toll Road, you're good to go all the way to Willis. And same thing with southbound. If you're leaving Willis heading towards Houston, you're cleared all the way through the Woodlands. There isn't any accidents or incidents being reported in the area. And that's it for the traffic report here on Lone Star Internet Radio. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but then we're back to the Extension Hour here on irlonestar.com.
Hello, Montgomery County. I'm Rachel Baldwin with Special Olympics Texas, Area 6. Are you a fan of courage? Are you a fan of determination? Are you a fan of acceptance, grace, and skill, then you're already a fan of Special Olympics. Make it official. Volunteer, coach, and or compete and be a fan of dignity and acceptance. The dedication of our Special Olympic Texas volunteers provides mainstreaming experiences for athletes with intellectual disabilities. You will touch the heart of another person, and it will move you in a meaningful way that lifts the spirit. Please visit the Heart of East Texas Area 6 webpage at www.sotx.org. Also, like us on Facebook to be a fan and be part of Special Olympics Texas.
Welcome back. This is Amy Ressler. I'm County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and this is the Extension Hour, which, by the way, is here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. So we're very excited to be back today. We're talking about health and wellness issues. Food and nutrition types of things are some of the big things that are part of my Family and Consumer Sciences program. And today I have Lora Jorgensen with me, and we're talking about gluten. So the celiac disease is a condition, and it's actually a condition where that gluten protein, damages the lining of the small intestines, and that intestine just cannot absorb nutrients very well, which can lead to malnutrition. And so these the symptoms of celiac disease can include painful rash, abdominal cramps, appetite loss, bloating, lots of yucky stuff, cramps, weaknesses, weight loss, all of those things. And celiac disease is a lifelong disease. They cannot tolerate gluten. But for some folks, later on in their lives, they do develop a wheat food allergy or a sensitivity. And that's where it generates an allergy-causing antibody. So the immunoglobulin E and reacts to the proteins that are found in wheat, and then the food allergy actually occurs to the immune system. So we're talking about two different things, but what it boils down to is that there are some folks who just can't handle wheat products or gluten products. So we say wheat is the most common. So that's one of the things that we always say, oh, wheat, we know that that's gluten. But we were just talking, Lora and I, about some of the other places that gluten is found that people don't always think about. So wheat, anything with flour, but some of the other things, like during the break we were talking about soy sauce. Who knew?
Right.
Soy sauce has gluten in it.
Soy sauce has wheat in it. It's really interesting. You wouldn't expect it there. But so again, read labels. Some brands have it, some don't, but be real careful with that one. And another one that we found is a lot of candy is made with wheat, unfortunately. Red licorice and black licorice are made with wheat flour. A bunch of those soft, chewy candies are. So read labels on candy, too. Anything with a long list of ingredients, just be sure you're reading that label.
Mm-hmm. Yes, unfortunately, there are new laws in place that specify major food allergens, and so wheat is one of those things, milk, eggs. Some of those others will come up, but there are laws that govern the labeling of food to make sure that those allergens are identified and included in bold on the ingredient list. They're using its common or usual name, and I guess that's kind of the tricky part. So the manufacturers can hide weird things under strange names, but they have to use the common names to make sure that people that are allergic are aware of that. And then there's also some symbols that go on products that help identify that it's gluten-free. And I think we mentioned earlier, I'm amused at gluten-free labels that are on foods that are naturally gluten-free. So we're also talking a little bit about some of the changes that you've made in the way that you cook and the way that you bake. You love baking. You love cooking.
Yes.
Cooking for your family. So using lots of fresh vegetables, fruits is a good way to avoid gluten, because if you're using them fresh and you're making them, then you don't really what goes into them.
Exactly.
And you
yes.
keep the stuff out that you don't need.
Yeah, cooking for yourself is the best way to avoid it.
Sure. So what are some other things that you do, or some like common changes that people can make? I mean, that people make.
Well, let's see. I mentioned using a vegetable substitute where you would normally use pasta. You can easily use any number of vegetables. as a substitute for spaghetti and your spaghetti sauces. Cauliflower makes a good one, and like I said, zucchini is a good one too.
Cauliflower is okay. So rice is not a gluten product, but cauliflower actually makes a really yummy kind of rice substitute.
Yeah.
So you're getting more vegetables. Less rice.
Right. I make a lot of the cauliflower rice. It's becoming more popular now. More people know what you're talking about when you say cauliflower rice. It's just basically taking raw cauliflower and grating it up in a food processor to, small little rice-looking particles, and just steaming that and using that instead of rice. But it makes a great substitute for pasta also. So, or you can also use that in salads where you would normally use something like the bulgur wheat, like making a tabbouleh type thing or something.
And I just want to say that one of the things that people can do to be more healthy in terms of diet, eating more fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
Vegetables and fruits. More vegetables than fruits, but vegetables and fruits, eating that's one simple thing that makes a huge difference.
Yes, it sure does.
Just general health and wellness.
Yeah.
So grain foods are those things that we almost automatically think of when we think of gluten. But let's talk about fruits and vegetables. What are some things to watch out for there, some changes that we would want to make in those areas?
Well, fruits and vegetables are naturally gluten-free, but you want to be careful if you, again, are buying maybe prepackaged fruits and vegetables that might have seasonings in them or be creamed.
Yeah, sauces.
Yes, be careful of that. And of course, when you maybe want to make a cream sauce at home, you can definitely do that, but you have to use a different type of a thickener. You can't use wheat flour anymore. You have to use something like a tapioca flour. Works really well. What's great is all these specialty flours are very easy to find right now. Your big grocery stores have them. And, there's a lot of people looking for these substitutes, buying them. So it's a pretty good market right now.
And finding recipes that are designed and tested to be gluten-free is a good practice. 'Cause it's not always that you can just not use flour, not use wheat flour, and you just put another type of flour in, right? I mean, sometimes you have to kind of make a kind of a mixture of flours and thickeners to get it to do what it needs to do to make it similar to what the flour did.
To try to mimic the texture of the original products. Like I said before, gluten has kind of a stretchy texture. So if you're going to bake with something other than wheat flour, you have to add something in that kind of mimics that texture. And gluten-free baking recipes they tend to have a few more ingredients, maybe some things you've never worked with before, things like xanthan gum or some other type of thickener. And don't be scared of it. They're easy to find in the grocery store.
Yeah, I want to say, so xanthan gum sounds like one of those things, those kinds of ingredients that if I didn't know better and I saw it on an ingredient list, I would go,
you kind of wonder about it, yeah.
Yes, I don't know about that, but it really is
it's actually a natural product, and it's something to be scared of. So, yeah, it's not a chemical. And it works really well to add kind of a stretchiness or as a thickener to things. You can actually make a fairly decent gluten-free bread. If you can find some recipes, and usually it's a mixture of different grain flours, maybe rice and tapioca and some different things like that, and then you add this xanthan gum to it as kind of that stretchiness agent. And you can do some pretty good baking. There's a lot of recipes out there. It's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of good cookbooks, so you have to search and find.
And a plethora of online resources.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So I would caution folks, too, about, when you're looking online, be really careful. I always say follow the money trail if someone's really trying to make money. I don't know that I trust the advice completely. Not to say that some of them are not legitimate information, but it's good to look for things that are like .com, not .com, sorry. That was like a faux pas. Not .com. Some of them can be all right. But .gov, .edu, .org, some of those are ones that represent organizations or agencies, groups that are not just out to make money. Like I said, it's not that they're always all bad, but if it's an education site, if it ends in an edu, you can pretty much trust that it's going to have some research-based information that's based on a lot of experts weighing in on what's the best way to educate and help people. So yes, lots of great online resources. Do you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite. I do a lot of searching around. Like if I get an idea in my head that I decide I want to make, I'll go and search up 2 or 3 recipes for it, and I'll kind of read through the ingredients, and I'll read the reviews and kind of decide what one to make. But yeah, so it's just a lot of trial and error. It's not tricky to bake gluten-free. It's just, like I said, a little bit different ingredients. You're just adding some things that you typically didn't use before.
Yeah. So, and then again, as we mentioned before, it's a good idea just to focus on your fruits and vegetables instead. And another thing when we're talking about diets and eating and healthy food, I think it's important to mention that gluten-free is not the same as low carbohydrate.
Exactly.
A lot of your gluten-free foods are still going to have carbohydrates in it. So, sometimes... people with celiac disease, because they can't tolerate that, tolerate the gluten protein, they have a misconception, or not just them, I say they, but they're the ones who are like really looking at it most often. But a very common misconception is that a gluten-free diet is equivalent to a low carbohydrate diet. So sometimes those people who don't have gluten issues think, I'm going to go gluten-free because that's going to be healthier for me. So we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between gluten-free and low carbohydrate, and talk a little bit about carbohydrates, and then talk about some more about substitutions and the other things that we can do. But I'm getting the signal that we need to go for another break. So this is Amy Ressler, and you're listening to the Extension Hour.
The Conroe YMCA's benchmark adaptive programming for kids and adults is Leap of Faith. Leap of Faith is an equine-assisted therapy program serving children and adults with adaptive needs. The riders in our Leap of Faith program are working to address and manage specific aspects of their lives impacted by illness, injury, or disability. The Leap of Faith program has experience working with riders who are living with attention deficit or other hyperactivity disorders, hearing impairments, visual impairments, developmental delays or disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, head traumas, brain injuries, and paralysis. Our program uses horseback riding to develop self-confidence and self-esteem, to increase upper and lower body strength, assist in respiratory issues, and establish a trusting relationship between the rider and their horse. Not only do these activities aid in the physical and mental development of the rider, but they also foster self-reliance and independence. For more information regarding our program, to become a rider, or to volunteer with a great group of people, please call our Welcome Center at 936-441-9622 or visit our website at www.ymcahouston.org/Conroe.
Tune in every Sunday night right here on Lone Star Internet Radio for adventure, romance, thrills, chills, and everything vintage radio drama can bring. The Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour comes to you every Sunday at 7 p.m. with brand new episodes monthly. Our productions always feature actors, music, and sound effects performed completely live. And now you can enjoy seeing each new episode performed on stage at the Owen Theater in Conroe. Check out www.irlonestar.com for information about upcoming episodes. Relive the glory days of vintage radio drama right here with the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
I'm Lieutenant Bob Berry with the Conroe Police Department, reminding you that drinking and driving do not mix. Drinking and driving causes an alcohol-related fatality every hour in the United States. Stay sober and stay alive.
At Jazzy Junk, volunteers reclaim, restore, and recycle. Jazzy Junk is a non-profit resale storefront where you will discover wonderful, unique finds at very affordable prices on furniture, antiques, books, art, home decor, and more. When you shop Jazzy Junk, you support New Danville, a community for adults with developmental disabilities. We receive new donations daily, so plan a visit to Jazzy Junk today to find that perfect item or gift. Our motto is here today, gone today, so remember to hurry in and shop often for the best selection. Jazzy Junk is located in the outlets at Conroe on League Line Road and I-45 North. Call 936-441-4500 or visit our website, jazzyjunk.org, that's Junque, for more information and store hours.
Hello again, I am Amy Ressler, County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. I just want to remind everyone, if you would like more information about Extension and what we do and some of our programs, we do have a great website. It's AgriLife Extension, so AgriLifeExtension, AgriLife Extension. .tamu.edu. We've got lots of great information on that, and there is actually a section on there too that's fcs.tamu.edu, and that's for Family and Consumer Sciences. And so if you would like more information about some of the things that we're talking about, there are all kinds of fact sheets and good information on there that you can access to find out more. And then we're always available there at the Extension office. You can call to ask questions, and that's we do that fairly often. So our number there at the Extension office is 936-539-7825. We've got a great staff there, lots of folks that can help you out, and we may not know the answer when you call, but we will find something out and try to get back to you. But often we can answer those questions kind of right away. So our question today is, how do you deal with being gluten-free? And some of the issues are going around gluten and gluten in foods. And we've mentioned just being, not everybody needs to avoid gluten, that it's not, it kind of has gotten a bad rap lately. So that people think that maybe it's evil. Oh, gluten, stay away from. That may be debatable, but gluten, if you don't have gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, there's really no reason to stay away from gluten, but common misperception that gluten-free is the same as low carbohydrate. So we want to talk a little bit about those misconceptions that people have, and I've got Lora Jorgensen with me here today, and Lora is a nutrition educator and a person who does practice being gluten-free because of being sensitive to it. So Lora, we talked about a misconception that of gluten-free equals low carbohydrate.
Right. That's something that is a misconception. One thing you have to remember is those gluten-free products you can buy in the store, such as pizza crusts, cookies, crackers, they are definitely not low carb. They're actually usually very high carb because they're made with rice flour and a bunch of other grain flours, and quite often lots of sugars. So you have to be careful if you're watching your carbs. Make sure you know what you're eating. Mm-hmm. Gluten-free is kind of seen by some right now as a weight loss fad.
Definitely not.
And it's definitely not a weight loss fad. That's very much a misconception. Gluten-free is specifically for people who are sensitive and tolerant to gluten or who have celiac disease.
Mm-hmm. So another misconception is that carbohydrates, the grains, and the wheat in particular are the villains. But there's really different reasons for this belief, and the truth is that there's really not any evidence to support this idea. Carbohydrates are an energy source. We absolutely have to have carbohydrates to survive. They provide energy source for your brain, for your red blood cells, and without consumption of carbohydrates, then our body produces these ketones ketones are actually ketones are produced from the breakdown of fat. So if those ketones don't happen, then it can cause you lots of problems. The body can go into a dangerous condition called metabolic ketoacidosis. On the other hand, diets without wheat, can be nutritious. So just because you're taking wheat out of your diet, you're avoiding gluten, doesn't mean that you can't have a good, well-balanced diet that does include grains and carbohydrates.
Right. And one thing to remember is our wheat flour that we consume in this country is fortified with vitamins and minerals. And when you take that out of your diet, you do have to make sure you're getting your vitamins and minerals, things like the B vitamins and folic acid. And so be sure you're either eating products that are fortified or you're taking a multivitamin to make up for that.
Yeah. Folic acid in particular, folic acid and folate is the synthetic form of that. But those birth defects are known to be caused by the lack of folic acid in the mother's diet. So, that's
it's a really important nutrient. That's why they fortify our food with it. So,
B vitamins are really important for healthy appetite. So, if we're not getting the B vitamins we need, then it can cause lots of appetite issues. We may feel too hungry or not hungry. So, it really helps with the feeling of satisfaction, those B vitamins. So, another thing that people ask us about sometimes when grains come up is quinoa. And quinoa is a good, it's actually not a grain, so it is a seed, and it's, if you want more information about quinoa, then definitely give us a call, and we do cooking demonstrations fairly often. We've got lots of good information about all kinds of again, health and wellness, food nutrition topics. We often do cooking classes. Lora joins me. Like I said, when we first started the show, she often comes to volunteer to help us out. And one of the things we do is our mobile cooking school, where we go to sites and actually set up and have a cooking class. It's pretty basic, and sometimes we do use gluten-free food, sometimes we don't, but we do address that whenever it's necessary. And if anyone's interested in hosting a class, definitely please give us a call. Again, our number is 936-539-7825. And Lora, thank you so much for coming with us today and talking about very personal, dear things to you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always great to see you.
Thanks.